Wired Axcess.
We'll do it live.
Wired Axcess.
Do it live.
Wired Axcess.
We'll do it live.
Wired Axcess.
Welcome to Wired Axcess Podcast, where I'm your host, DJ K-Dub Omaha. I appreciate everybody that likes, shares, follows all the stories. If you haven't already, make sure to like, share below. Let people know these stories that we're getting of local NEB preps and beyond. And also, don't forget, we appreciate those who follow the Wired Axcess plug-and-play coverage, whether it's a football game, basketball game, volleyball, looking to do some wrestling this year. Make sure to like, follow, vote for those. And we really appreciate UNK, Coach Held, for allowing us to come out this last week to cover local college, who gives opportunities to many across the way. But today, a week after signing, we have Cade Ziola of Skutt Catholic. And man, you're going to be a future Husker. We just had 2 Husker softball players on last week, and they signed that day. That was crazy. Now we got you. Welcome to the show. How is it going, man? You got season coming up.
It's going great, man. I just want to say thank you guys so much for having me on this show, and I'm excited to get into it.
So, man, your wrestling career is a lot of firsts for the state of Nebraska. I think that people will miss out on, whether it's getting as far as you did in the Super 32. You do the Ironman. This is your 3rd year. You're getting to represent, as you told me, you get to represent Skutt, because when you go to these events and it's not in season, you can't represent the school that you wear a lot of pride with. And it's not that you don't wear pride with a club, because you also love the club.
Yeah.
But high school is where the fun and where you really get those experiences. Where does let's just start where your love for wrestling started, or when you remember when you go, this is what I want to do.
All right. So no one in my family actually has wrestling background at all. My dad was a Division I baseball player. So big, baseball, football, family background. And growing up, me and my twin brother were wild kids growing up. And my dad was like, shoot, I want to teach him to be tough. And he went to Gross, and Gross had a really good wrestling background in the day. He's has a lot of wrestler buddies. So he took us to wrestling practice. And from that point on, I kind of always loved it. And I tried playing other sports growing up, but I just wasn't great at it. And I didn't have that love for it like I did for wrestling. I love how it's an individual sport. And I just love scrapping.
Now, but you said one thing, you played other sports and you just weren't good. Do you think that might been your turning point of going, do I stay with it or do I go? Did you have to be good, or could you just live in the moment? Because, of course, you got your twin brother also committed to Nebraska for baseball. Sometimes it's well, if he's having fun, I can't have fun. How was that relationship on whether you could have fun, even though you felt you weren't good? I don't know what you were when you were growing up on that.
Yeah, so, it wasn't I was bad. It was just hey, my dad I got a crazy dad, by the way, and he kind of sat me and my brother down, and it's you guys kind of got to pick one sport to go all in on. And so we were doing wrestling, football, and baseball at the time, and it was about junior high, and I knew I loved wrestling, and my brother knew he loved baseball. And when we kind of quit those other sports and focused on our one main path, that was definitely a big turning point, because I was only wrestling 4 or 5 months a year, and now I wrestle 11 months a year now, get a lot more training, get to do freestyle and Greco, which is really cool. And it's definitely an advantage.
When you look at your junior high and you remember playing in those other sports, what was some of the things that you took from maybe each sport that maybe helped grow to who you are, whether it's the agility, whether it's the speed? What is some things that other sports might have helped you in wrestling? Because I try to tell players all the time, I coached high school football for 8 years. I coached kids for 14 years. I said, if you're not doing nothing in the winter, if you're not playing basketball, get your butt to wrestling, because you're going to learn how to tackle someone with shooting that double. I'm just dead honest. That's how quick and easy it is. Go shoot a double and you'll be the top tackler. What was that like for you? And what was some of the things you learned to help you with wrestling?
100%. I think one of the biggest things I learned from, football and baseball was kind of that camaraderie of being a good teammate. I was really I had some really successful baseball players on my team, being Cale Fountain or my brother, or, a lot of D1 guys on that team. And so I was never really one of the starters, but I got I got to learn how to like pick those guys up and like be their friend and like just be a good teammate for them and make the most out of my opportunities. And with football, like the energy in football is like a different like kind of thing. Like I always loved that. Like football, you make a big play, you and your buddies are yelling, you hype. Like I always loved that about football. Like everyone's going crazy, everyone's into it. And so I kind of like took those things over with wrestling. Like, hey, I'm gonna show up to practice with a good attitude. I'm gonna get the other guys on the team involved and kind of like lead by example in that sense.
Well, and I like, man, you've said something. I mean, I've done this is show like 85 or 86, and one of the things that you said there is you knew the talent around you, and you knew the number one thing to learn from it was being a good teammate. What does it mean for even your fellow teammates and you see someone not act that way? How can you adjust and kind of wave around that? Because being a good teammate is so much for the mental beyond the physical, because I think people need that, whether it is, hey, how's it going? Just checking on them. Because like you said, this is a sport where it's me against me. And I could get upset, and my teammate that's wrestling 175 ain't going to change what I do at 205 or 215.
Yeah. And so I think the coolest thing about being a good teammate is never really talking about yourself or the stuff you've done. It's making everyone feel like they're a part of it. You know what I mean? Like I've been around some of like my idols and like Olympians and these national champions. And the coolest thing I think is when they never talk about how they won the NCAAs or they were an Olympic medalist or whatever. They're just like normal dudes making you evolve, helping you. And because when you get around someone that only talks about themselves or is really selfish, it's kind of like, dang, like, all right, like I don't only want to talk about this. Like I want to be good friends with you, you know. Like I think just having really good, strong relationships that's not only based upon football, wrestling, or baseball, that's not only based upon one sport is really important. Like going and getting food after practice, checking in on how their life's going, you know, making sure they're okay, not just, hey, are you winning wrestling matches?
Now, when you think of those aspects, how does that turn into even just your classmates? We had a young Yano Jones on this show just over a year ago, and we were talking to him. One of the things that his late father said was just his best friend was a kid that didn't even play sports and didn't even play football. And I think sometimes those kids need someone that care about them as a teammate just as much as your fellow wrestlers do.
100%. So I got a bunch of buddies that actually aren't like insane athletes or play a lot of sports, but I mean, shoot, one of my friends got a 36 on the ACT. Like he's a great dude. And like, I think it's just surrounding yourself with the right people. And I mean, just because you're not a big time athlete doesn't mean you're like a bad person or anything. There's a bunch you can learn from, you know, some of those smarter kids. And like, I got a buddy that's in show choir and he's just a great dude. Like, and I'm not.
Now, have you been to one of those?
Yeah. So
it's like a sporting event, is it? Dude, not everybody is crazy.
It's insane. So I actually went to my like first play this year, and I was like, all right, like screw it, I'm going. Like, you know, I'm gonna pop out to the school play. And when I showed up, it was packed. Like I had to sneak into this play. I was like, I had no clue it was like this, and I was like, by the end of the show, I'm standing up clapping, like cheering. I'm like, dang, this is sweet.
But it's getting you to where you get to be the high school kid. And I think that's some things that people they don't regret, but they go, man, I really didn't experience a lot, because you said, you know, your dad came to you in junior high, you got to specialize more in one sport. That is, of course, been a big thing lately.
Yeah.
Kel Fountain's been doing it. He committed in 8th grade. I mean, you know, like you said, you played with him, you know, the kid, and we've had him on our show twice. But like, does that take away from the experiences that you might have wanted to have by having to go just wrestling, or did it just feed into your want and drive for wrestling more? Because I think it's kind of a both ways, right?
Yeah, I definitely think it is both ways. You know, maybe I could have played baseball and football and I could have had some of those great memories with the guys, but I truly believe I would not be half of where I am in wrestling. And I'd give those memories up anytime to be where I am in wrestling, because like that's my true love. Like I truly just love the sport of wrestling. And I'm grateful that I did pick that one and that I do have a dad that's like, hey, you know, like you kind of got to go all in, because you look at these guys all across the country and the whole like 3-sport D1 athlete, play 2 sports in college thing, that's kind of dying down, just because you see how good high school athletes are getting now. It's insane, especially in wrestling. There's high school kids placing at the Olympic trials and winning college opens and beating NCAA champions. So I believe you're at a disadvantage if you're not going all in, because the rest of the country is.
So when you look at that part of the first couple of years in high school, what do you think is your biggest learning from going all in on that and giving up the other? And what was the thing that you go, okay, maybe I took some of these things for granted that I was doing, and now I got to turn it back up?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe getting I wouldn't say complacent, but a little bit lost in the sauce of, because not everybody wants to go shoot 50 doubles.
Yeah.
But to be Division I, what do you got to do?
The number one thing I'd say this to anyone, it's you have to make it fun. Like wrestling, if you look at wrestling sport, like it sucks. Like it's hard. You're basically like fighting to do with rules, but you gotta surround yourself around coaches and teammates that make the sport fun, and you gotta like learn how to love it. Like I look at the sport like a chess match. Like, hey, if a guy touches me here, I can touch him here, and like I want to critique every little technical thing. And I find like the beauty in that. And at the end of the day, I think it's still a game. Like I'm trying to level up every day and like get better. And, you know, I look at it as just having a bunch of fun. And I used to take it so like so life or death. Like, hey, like if I lose this match, like no coach is ever going to want me. No one's ever going to like me. Like I suck. I used to like tell myself stuff like that. And I kind of learned like, dude, doing sports are fun. Like you're doing this, like at the end of the day, it's just like you're a kid having fun, like, and not being so hard on myself, and just like, hey, in the grand scheme of things, no one gives a crap how you do, like your freshman year of high school. Like not like I used to make middle school wrestling so life or death. I look back on it now and I'm like, oh my gosh, that was stupid. And that's probably how I'm going to feel like once I get to college. Like, yeah, high school wrestling was cool, but compared to this, it's like nothing.
But it's also scary, because those are the things that mentally beat up kids regularly, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have coaches, you have parents, even the supportive parents, you know. But because you're so hard on yourself, it doesn't make that part easier. What do you think was your kind of clicking thing to go, I can't do that to myself or else I'm going to fail? Because, I mean, when you watch the Nick Hamilton interview we did, he didn't learn that until he was in college, that the wins and losses aren't the end of the world. It's how do we continue to progress and gain the knowledge of the sport to where we can counter things and do the right things.
100%. So I actually met Coach Travell. He's the assistant coach at Nebraska, 7-time world team member, like Olympic bronze medalist. And he pretty much changed my whole like outlook on the sport. Because I used, like I said, I used to make it so life or death. And he kind of just like told me like, hey, like this is the reality. Everyone's good at wrestling. Like wrestling is hard. Like just like it's fun. Like you're not, if you lose this match, I'm still gonna love you. Like I'm not gonna hate you. And my dad was really big on that too. I used to be so scared of what my dad's gonna think, what my mom's gonna think, what my brother's gonna think. And kind of learning that, like, just learning that, man, they still love me no matter what. Like they're still proud of me. Having that in my back pocket, and then obviously God, that's a big part of like, you know, going to Skutt, having a strong faith, like knowing that God still loves me and stuff. That's really big. And so even if like, even when I lose now and stuff, because man, I do lose, I go chase lions. Like that's part of the brand. Like even when I lose, it's like, dang, I got. Like I'm gonna get in the room Monday and see what I can do to fix it. It's not, I'm going to go not wrestle for 2 weeks and tell myself I suck and my whole world's over. Like it may feel like that 10 minutes after the match, like it does, because like lose your dream. But then 2 hours later, I'm like, all right, I lost a freaking wrestling match. Like I'm going to be back.
So you got your brother playing baseball. Normally twin brothers, everybody talks about it. They do the same. They do everything. Do you think you guys going separate sports has created a better bond, closer bond, to where you guys really get to live in your own moments and really express to each other the proudness because you're not like going, he's trying to wrestle at 205. I'm trying to wrestle at, you know what I'm saying? Because you don't want to lose those tight knit aspects that you get to experience as a twin. As you grow up, those are going to slowly, he's going to marry someone, you're going to marry someone, all that stuff. But right now you get to both watch 1-2 different times of the year. You guys excel. What's that like being a twin?
Like if I had to describe me and my brother's relationship, it's obviously competitive, but it's like we want to see each other do good so bad that it's never bad blood. It's like, hey, did you lift today? Like I lift today. Like it's more like getting on each other like that. And we both have so much respect for each other and we're so close. Like we do everything together, like outside of wrestling and baseball, obviously, that it's just, we want to see each other win so bad that like we'll help each other with everything. I'm never ever jealous if he has a good baseball outing. He's never ever jealous if I do good at wrestling. It's like, I think my parents have done such a great job in raising us to be like best friends and, brothers, even my little brother too. I never get jealous. They never get jealous. Like we love each other so much. We just want to see each other win.
I like that you brought up Ben, your younger brother. How important do you think your way to who you are with wrestling has helped shape him mentally into who he might be today, of being able to switch from the beating yourself up and being the guy that thinks if I lose one, it's over? How important do you think having a bigger brother like yourself who has been there, gone through that tribulation and has overcame it, helps him? Because obviously his freshman year, he had just as successful as the next.
Yeah. I mean, it's been awesome getting to go on this journey with Ben, and we're obviously still on it. And I think just getting to experience some of the things before him has really got to help him. And, like losing big matches or like, especially like the nerves of being in high school and stuff, I've got to kind of experience that. So I think I have some really good advice for him. And, like we're super close too. Like if Ben, like when Ben's wrestling, like I feel like I'm on the mat with him too. And so we kind of got that camaraderie that's like, dang, like we both can feel each other's energy and like both want each other to win. And like if he's slacking off at practice, I'll grab him and tell him, what are you doing, dude? And it's the same way for him. And I don't look at him like, oh my gosh, that's my little brother. Like, don't talk to me like that. It's like, you know what, dude? I understand.
Well, but I like how you said pulling him off to the side if you notice something's off, because some people, I mean, I've told the story many times. Noah Fant got kicked off of the football field as a senior because his brother was the coach and made an example of, if you want to be that NFL player that he is today, you can't act this way and be that person. That's the same way you're probably feeling as far as the opportunities will be there, but you got to put yourself there. You can't just expect it because these are my brothers. You're going to put yourself there because you're going to better and learn from that last match.
100%. You can never no one will ever be above the sport as good as they are. Like you can never disrespect this. Like you can never be, oh, I'm too good at wrestling. I'm going to disrespect the sport. Like I've seen people try and do it. Like I've even experimented with it, like myself, like not in like a bad or good way, but just like I've taken matches not serious because I'm Cade Ziola or whatever. Like, oh, I'm going to kill this guy. And then every time you get a wake up moment. I think like you're never too good for the game.
When you look at wrestling, what do you think is the best thing it has taught you? And what do you think that you wish it would have taught a little bit better that maybe another sport or just even life would have taught?
I think the best thing in life wrestling has taught me is how to deal with the hard things in life. Because when you look at sports and especially wrestling, it feels like life or death in that those 10 minutes after a match. Like after I won an Ironman last year, like you could have came up to me and said, you just won the lottery, you got $100 million. Like I couldn't have been happier after that match. Or when I lost the national finals at Fargo this summer, you could have said, hey, I know it's dramatic, but hey, your whole family just died. For 5 minutes after that match, I was already as sad as I could be, because I got my dream stolen, and something you work so hard for. And I think wrestling has taught me how to deal with kind of those hardships in life. Like my mom, actually, not a lot of people know this. She went through breast cancer about a year and a half ago. And, I was grateful for the sport of wrestling and that hard time to kind of teach me like, all right, like I'm not going to let this like affect my life. And like, obviously it affects my life, but I'm not going to let it like change the man who I am or anything. I'm going to be a better person, like, or my mom, or like when I'm going through it, like wrestling really teaches you discipline too. Like the sport of wrestling is discipline. Like whoever breaks position loses. And literally you have to starve yourself. You have to lock yourself in a sauna, run, like cut weight. And, that like wrestling has taught me like a lot of discipline, like just stay no to stuff, like locks you in. And then I think, what was the other part of the question?
What was something that it could possibly, that you wish it could teach you better, or a little bit, maybe a different angle or something that could have improved something?
I kind of wish there was a little bit more energy in wrestling, like with the football thing. Everyone's into it. Everyone's hype. Like I wish people didn't like put themselves down so much in wrestling. And, because like when one of your teammates, if one of your teammates loses and they walk off the mat and don't talk to people, like cuss people out, act like an idiot, the whole kind of morale is down. Whereas like,
and it hits the team, right?
It hits the team really hard.
It hits the team. And I think because it's an individual sport, maybe they don't realize that it's a team part on that part.
And I mean, we all get selfish. I mean, it's an individual sport. Like we all, no matter what, we all want to win more than other people. Like at the end of the day, like we all want to win really bad. But I think that like that's something that I'm really working on as my journey, is like being a good teammate. Like if I lose, like I'm not gonna act like an a-hole and like not talk to my teammates. No, like I gotta be there for my guys no matter what.
When you talked about a very important thing, and we had Ron Higdon, who's the NSAA director, and he also coached at UNO and was a former All-American, and he was just talking about he also watches over the food nutrition. When you look at the part of cutting weight and stuff like that, what do you think is something that you really, because cutting weight is a hard subject, right? To talk about, to know about, because there's a right way, there's a wrong way.
I've done them both. Oh my gosh.
And but it's a constant thing. What do you think also that Nebraska's maybe putting a little instill in you to understand about it? Because I know when we had Nick, the one thing he was talking about is just he didn't have to do that no more, because if you eat certain amounts and certain calories and certain micros, that whole cutting weight relieves pressure. Like I hate to say it, but it does, because you're like, I watched my daughter do it for powerlifting. She had a show choir on Saturday that she had to go to with state on Sunday, and she had to make weight. So she went all show choir on Saturday, barely eating anything, maybe a protein bar, maybe a drink, to make weight, come back and weigh in on Sunday morning. And just like the attitude, the reactions, it didn't feel humbling, and it sucked, because you're watching your kids go through this part of not starving themselves, because we can go days without food if we had to, but mentally you're still in that motion of going, man, all I can have is this protein bar, or all I can have is water, and I can't even have water because I got to get that sweatsuit. Talk about just that part for you and your growth through your time, and what you're looking to hopefully accomplish when you get to Nebraska with that.
So I think something that definitely like is really crazy about wrestling is like like when you cut weight, you're choosing to do it. Like you sign up for the weight class. Like unless you got some crazy parents, which is awful, that's forcing you to make weight. Like a bunch of wrestlers are like, hey, my body feels better 10, 15 pounds down here. Like this is the weight I'm going to compete at. And so I think the number one thing is learn how to cut weight the right way. And a big factor that's water loading. So, you drink a couple, like 2 gallons of water a day, like 2 weeks out, and a week out, you only drink 1 gallon. And then, 3 days out, you're drinking half a gallon. Then you kind of just cut your water. And so what a lot of people do wrong is they lose all the weight too fast. So they'll be like 3 pounds over, like 5 days before, miserable, not eating, barely drinking, just keeping their weight down. Kind of you watch these UFC fighters cut weight, and these big time wrestlers, they'll show up 8 pounds over like 3 hours before. They'll just have one really hard workout, lose 8 pounds because they're hydrated, and they'll only be down to weight for 20 minutes, then they'll just balloon right back up. And kind of at Nebraska, I'm actually going heavyweight. So in college, it's either 197 or 285. And I'm already well past 197. I'm already about 210, 215 right now. I'm going 215 this year. So I'm actually going to redshirt next year and gain a bunch of weight and get ready to go wrestle heavyweight. And I'm kind of learning that gaining weight is it's a challenge too. Like having to force yourself to eat, like, I mean, eating
because it's got to be the right stuff, right?
Mhm.
I mean, yeah, sure, you can go eat all the pizza and all the candy you want, but it's not the sugars, it's not the carbs that
you
you're
show up
looking
to
at.
practice and you want to die the next day. Go to McDonald's, like, oh my, I used to eat McDonald's like religiously, like freshman, like sophomore year. I stopped eating McDonald's, and like the other day I got McDonald's for the first time forever. I was like, I feel like crap. Like I'm never like.
That's me and soda. I stopped drink. I used to drink Dr. Pepper when I was a kid, like yourself, and I would drink Dr. Pepper like it was water. Now I can't stand it. I taste all 23 flavors of that syrup for sure. Like it is just nothing but syrup. You're not even getting anything. And I'm like, how do people drink this? Kind of like you're probably thinking of the Mickey D's, man. I love this stuff, but no, this ain't it.
Isn't it crazy how just like your body just feels so much worse when you do it? Like I used to think like, oh my gosh, like, no, this doesn't matter. Like, and then as I got older, I'm like, okay, I can't eat like crap anymore. Like that was definitely
Omaha, Skutt, you guys make the decision to go there for wrestling and baseball. What do you think your guys is, you have to choose to go there? What was the drive? Why not? Your dad went to Gross. Why not there? What was some of the things that made you guys choose Skutt? Obviously I know for my son doing the junior Skyhawks. So we were just around all the wrestlers out there. It was for football, not for, but I know their kid program is up and blooming, and there's a lot of the football players that are constantly going there. What was your guys' decision and why Skutt?
So Skutt was kind of like, Skutt had always like, obviously we're Catholic family. Like, so obviously it's probably going to be like Catholic high school. It kind of came down to like Skutt or prep, and Skutt it's truly like an amazing place. Like I know I sound like, oh, he just loves Skutt, whatever. Like
no, but that, I mean, though, it's just like when you go to Nebraska, and it's just like I tell anybody, when you go to your college and you feel those feelings that you're feeling, that's where you want to be.
Yeah. So I ended up going, and I did not know where I want to go to high school until I shadowed Skutt, and you can just feel like the environment in the halls. I'm like, these are the teachers, these are the people I want to be around with the next 4 years. And then obviously the history of the wrestling program and the baseball team. And it's like, yeah, like this is where I want to be. It's crazy how like same thing in Nebraska. Like I took a bunch of recruiting visits, and when I'm with the guys on the team at Nebraska, it just feels different. Like it feels like I'm part of them. Like it's.
Well, and I like that you brought, so when you look at Skutt Class B, some people try to call that out. What would you say when it comes to wrestling? Because of course, and we'll get to it here in a little bit, but you've wrestled on bigger stages than anybody in the state of Nebraska and gotten to the highest point. What is it that when people bring up, oh, it's just Class B, what does that mean to you? And how do you look at that? Because wrestling's still wrestling.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think it does not play a factor at all in wrestling Class B and A. I mean, I think they're obviously a lot better than C and D just because like the more kids in there. But I mean, I think obviously for other sports like your footballs, like especially football, basketball, like A is probably a lot better. But for wrestling, like that's not true. Like I don't think that at all. Like Class B historically has had a bunch of like killers come out of there. Same with A, and you look at the top kids in B and you look at the top kids in A, and they're almost identical. And Class B Class A only has 32 teams in wrestling. So it's a lot easier to qualify for the state tournament and place the state tournament in A than B, just because there's a lot more schools, and there's a lot of those like kind of small, like big, small town schools that are like really tough in Class B.
Columbus.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't care what anybody says. They walk around with those robes. You know what that means, right? Like,
yeah.
You know, when you see those maroon robes walking around, like it's something they cherish. It's something they honor. It's something. And these robes are from years ago. It isn't like something you could go down to the local store and pick you up one of those maroon robes. And when you look at, of course, where Class B and now how wrestling has grown just in the state. What do you think about the girls wrestling and all that coming together to push the sport of wrestling a little bit more in the state?
I mean, I think it's amazing. I think there should be no wrestling. There should be no fighting over like what's better, B or A, like C or D. I think just more wrestling, like grow wrestling, because I think wrestling is such like a great sport to teach you, like especially a lot of life lessons, teach you how to be a good teammate, teach you how to lose, teach you how to win, how to act. And so I think girls wrestling is awesome too, because, you know, like you see these girls out there getting to go do their things and like experience the same feelings as the boys. And yeah, I think it's really good how, like, I think it's great how they have their own division now. It's their own sport. Cause I thought it was kind of like, dang, this isn't really fair. They're getting to wrestle in the boys division. Like, I would hate to do that if I'm a girl. Like, I'm going to be honest. Like that was.
Well, I mean, even as a guy wrestler, you're going, man, what do I do?
I'm
here?
like, dude, I don't want to wrestle this girl.
Yeah. What do I do here? Do I just give up or do I, so now they got their own, they got 2 days. They got class A and B. They got 2 classes. So that's good. I mean, just watching the growth of the sport locally. And of course, being down, what does it mean to wrestle, of course, here locally at the CHI and knowing that this is state and just, I mean, because I could tell you from a fan and the outside looking in, the atmosphere is just electric, and especially the last day. I mean, the introductions, the everything, the lights, the you know, smoke, all that stuff just coming together, and you're just like, man, I'm here.
I mean, I think there's honestly no other NSA event like state wrestling. Number one, it sells out the CHI Center. That is thousands and thousands of people. Number two, like,
and try to get a ticket on that last day. I dare you.
It's absolutely. I mean, we had to hustle for tickets to all these years.
For family, because you're like, one, you don't know how many days you buy in, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, respect to you, of course, you've made it multiple times, so the odds are higher. But for the kids that are really just building themselves, they might have just mom and dad there. They get to the finals. They want to bring more. They can't because they can't.
It's and I think that like that's so cool, just having all those people there for wrestling. And like, cause I mean, everyone wants to go to state wrestling just because like growing up as a kid, like state wrestling was like the coolest event of the year. Like you feel like the energy, like I swear I just remember watching, like, cause I used to wrestle, like seeing all my club buddies, kids I looked up to as a kid getting to go out there and wrestle. And then, you know, last year I kind of had like an epiphany moment, like walking around like the venue. I was like, it just kind of felt like really cool. Like I remembered all the times I came there as a kid and like getting to see that. And now I'm like, dang, this is like reality. Like I'm the guy these kids.
It's almost over. You got one more ride.
It's cool, like seeing like, dang, like a lot of these like little kids are probably watching me and my brother, and you know I grew up with Tyson Terry and all these kids that we've known forever, getting to do these great things.
So, recruiting process. What do you feel about your recruiting process? No schools needed. Do you feel like sometimes you felt like they were for sure looking at you and wanting you, or did you feel like some of the toying sometimes with some of them?
It was crazy. So like how wrestling, you know, June 15th, you can get calls. And that was obviously like, that was just like, I had no clue I was going to get like as many calls.
Did you set the phone down and go, I can't answer this?
No, I always answer the calls just because, I mean, it's like, so wrestling, a lot of the head coaches and assistant coaches are like the legends of our sport, like people I've looked up to. So I loved like getting to build relationships with those people that I've watched on the TV my whole life and like looked up to. And I'd be like, oh my gosh, like this guy's calling me, like I'm fanboying over here. Like I got to take his call. And I would just be so nervous. But the only thing you could tell when the guy was like really into the call. And then you could tell when some people, it was just like, hey, they asked the same kid every question. Like you can tell the energy and like the passion in the coach's voice. And that was like the coaches that like really like seemed like they really wanted me, like called me a lot. Like those were the schools I took visits to and really liked.
When you look at your decision for Nebraska, was it, besides you said the family feeling from the other athletes that are there, what was kind of your big decision? Did you want to stay close to home? Was Nebraska something that you were always dreaming as a possibility as you were a kid? Because you've talked so much about dreams, ambitions, and drive. Was that a something that, I mean, we have one of the biggest names out of Nebraska with Jordan Burroughs that everybody looks up to, and he's not the only one. There's plenty of them, but I mean, that's one of the most recent ones that is continuing that journey of a wrestler beyond college that to look up for.
Something that like one of the Nebraska coaches said to me that really stuck with me was, picture yourself, you're in the national finals, you're about to walk out. Could you imagine yourself wearing any other singlet other than like the block N on your chest? And I was like I just get goosebumps thinking about that. Like being from here, like forever, I'm like, yeah, like I want to be a Husker, like wear the block N, like it really means something. And then obviously, you know, my twin brother committed as a sophomore. So he was really pressuring me hard, like, hey, dude, like we're gonna live together, like we do everything together, like, come on, bro, like you know where you want to go.
Those are the helpful ones, though, right? Because he has similar passion, obviously, but it's people don't understand how having someone that is committed to a school also eases it a little bit more for you to make that decision. Not making it right away. You obviously went through the cycle and looked through some, but just knowing like, okay, that's another comfort for me.
100%. I mean, I think one of the biggest things about coming up in college is like getting to surround yourself with the right people. Like my dad said this last night at practice. He said, who you are the first 6 weeks at college is who you probably will be the last 6 weeks. He's like, you guys need to surround yourself with the right people and like-minded people with like-minded goals. So the kids we also have committed in this class of 2025 for Nebraska are great dudes. They actually came out and hung out and stayed with us last week. And then obviously my brother, and then I know a few other baseball players coming here. And, you know, Tyson Terry, like we grew up with him. He's going there. So I know a bunch of like great dudes going to Nebraska. And I think that's really cool, kind of getting to see everyone come together. Everyone's like-minded. Everyone has those same dreams and ambitions. And when you put a bunch of like lions or great people in a room, like it's gonna elevate. People are gonna try and one up each other, and it's gonna build a great culture.
It's contagious.
100%.
It's contagious. They want to be a part of it. You talk about Dad. You talk about his connection with you guys and going through it. What was his talk when you guys were thinking of where you wanted to go? How was his talk with you, and how important was it? The words that he kind of told you.
I mean, my dad. I've found in life that if I just listen to what he says, like I'm gonna be like, that's just what I should do. Like he truly like loves us so much and always is looking out for the best for us. It's, he kind of said like every school we took a visit to, he kind of told, he's like, Cade, this is your decision, man. It's like, obviously I want you close to home, but like this is where you're going to be the next 4 or 5 years of your life. And I want you to make it on your own. Like, I'm not going to pressure you into anything. There's obviously some things that I like and don't like, some pros and cons, but he kind of let me have my own process and let me kind of go on this journey. I mean, he was obviously right there with me, but he wanted to make sure I made the decision for me, not just for like, hey, I'm going to go to Nebraska so I can be with close to home and like end up hating it. He said like, wherever I go, I got to love it. Cause you got to, my whole life, he's kind of taught me like, you got to love what you do or else you're not going to evolve at it because you don't want to.
Yeah. It's the want, the drive. You make your decision for Nebraska. You look at all these big tournaments that you get to go to, the Who's Up Next, the Ironman. What are you getting from all these, and how important are these bigger tournaments to your development? And I mean, even speak on the one that you have coming up in season where you get to represent your school and what it means to you.
I mean, I think my whole life, something that we've always instilled is, hey, we're going to go hunt the best kids down. Like that's kind of how it's always been. And oh my gosh, I used to get my butt whooped freshman year, 8th grade, 7th grade. Like we'd be on all these like super teams and I would be the kid just getting my butt whooped. And then eventually my dad and, my like brothers are just like stick with it. Like I'm going to get you in every opportunity. And eventually, like once I kind of started beating some of those kids, I just got that confidence in me that like, hey, I belong with these guys. And, through high school, I've done every, like all the tough high school tournaments. I've chased all the losses. And I think that's so important because, you see a lot of kids commit and they're like, all right, no, I'm not going to wrestle. Like that. I think that's cheesy. Like, hey, go put it on the line. Like you gotta you can never replicate a competition. You can never replicate the stress, the pressure, like the nerves, like, and that feeling of just getting to walk out there and battle and do it in front of a bunch of people. Like, I think that's really cool.
Because you couldn't imagine taking this year off, right?
No, this is never. Like,
I mean, because then your mental has to change, right? It
Mhm.
couldn't be the same. It couldn't be the same fire that's behind it because
and it's like I kind of like talk about like my brand and like who I want to be the guy that always wanted to wrestle in the Big Ten, because that's where the toughest competition at. Like, I love to go out and just put it on the line, wrestle the tough guys. Like, that's something that I've been taught since I was little, is like, hey man, we don't run from no one like this. That's just what we do.
when you see Nebraska give opportunities to someone like a Nash Hutchmaker, what does that say for a program like them that can get a guy who puts on weight for football, get him down to his right weight, and get him to compete to the level that he was able to get back to? Yeah, he didn't win first place like he won year after year. But mentally and physically, the amount of change that you have to go to from being a heavyweight in football to a heavyweight in wrestling.
I mean, dude, that is a giant human. Oh my gosh. I remember being around him. He was well in the 300s. He had to make 285. And, he did it for the guys. Like, Nash could have easily said no, but he felt the energy. He wanted to help out the team and wanted to be a part of that. And I think that speaks to the culture in Nebraska, guys doing stuff like that. That's just another reason I want to be there. I think that's so amazing, like seeing Nash do that. And you know what? He didn't get first place, but he did. He did go out there and battle. I mean, he put that block in on his chest and he went after it. And I think that was, I got nothing but respect for that guy.
He opened up so many eyes to possibilities, right? He made it known that he's here. He wasn't just going through the motions. And I think that speaks so much volumes for the Nebraska wrestling, speaks volumes even just for local kids to see that, to go, man, this is where I want to be. You got your senior year. We'll get you out of here on all this going through. What's upcoming for you? What's some things you're looking forward to this last year? And how are we going to prepare for Nebraska next year?
All right. So upcoming 18 days, we got the Ironman tournament. That was the biggest high school in-season tournament. That was the one I actually won that one last year. That was the first from Nebraska ever. That was probably one of the coolest experiences of my life. And so for that one, I'm really, there's some guys in that bracket that have beat me. Like the kid that beat me at Super 32, he'll be there. And then there's another really tough guy. And that tournament, man, I've been training hard for this one. I'm ready. Like I can feel like myself right now, like just believing I'm going to win. I'm going to go out there. I'm not even putting winning like on a pedestal. I'm gonna go out there and be the best version like myself and go out and wrestle my hardest and fight. And so I'm really excited for that. And then after that, get to do a bunch of like local tournaments with the team, get to have the Skutt team. And then we're gonna go out to Tournament of Champions in Reno, Nevada. That's a big tournament. That one's sweet. So I'll probably get to wrestle the guy that I actually wrestled, who's number one there. Again,
okay,
from California. He's a beast, and we'll probably get a wrestle again there. And then, then kick it off with districts, finish it off with districts and state. And state's obviously always the most tournament I'm always excited for, just because there's nothing cooler than getting to wrestle in front of that many people.
One last ride, right?
Yeah.
One last ride.
I just want to, we have a really tough team this year, and I want to break some team records. Like, we got a lot of big goals for us as a Skutt team, and I'm so excited to do it with my brother again and my friends that I've trained with. And
well, I could tell you from the kids that you have, there's a couple that my son played football with, and one that comes to mind to see the growth and opportunity that he's getting at the next level is a Riley Johnson.
Oh, come on, baby.
Man, if you told me when I saw him with the helmet bigger than his body, running around doing football, to who he is today, that is night and day of what Skutt wrestling has done.
100%. I mean,
and now he's going to South Dakota State.
Yeah, I mean, they're really tough. Number 9 in the country. Riley is a goofball, though. I call Riley a wrestlehead. You want to talk about a guy that just loves it, and he's not athletic. Does not have a great build. Like, talks kind of funny, looks kind of funny, but man, he freaking loves wrestling, and he shows up every day with great energy, and every day he's trying to get better. And I think that's why you see him be so successful. And, getting to be around guys like that, it just keeps building up, like I'm saying. And I'm so proud of what Riley is, how far he's came, because gosh,
great kid, man. Great
Awesome
opportunity that you guys continue to provide. Well, once again, let the Husker fans know what they're getting when you come to Nebraska before we get you out of here. And I appreciate you coming on the show and really sharing the love and passion that if you don't feel this about the sport that you play, it might not be your sport.
And I say that with like things in life too. Like when I'm older, whatever job I do, I'm gonna want to love it. Like, or else I'm gonna be stuck in this. I don't want to get up and go to work today. I don't want to. Like, if you gotta have like, the one thing I've learned is just to have like passion about the things you do, because you're gonna want to be good. You're gonna want to get better at it. And so with the Huskers, man, I'm super excited to become a Husker. And
what's the scariest thing about the weight, though? Does it scare you at all?
No, I just got to put on this weight. Like, and my coach like said it as like a really good example. Like with cutting weight, if you don't make the weight, if you don't cut the weight, you don't get to wrestle at the weight class. And if I don't put on this weight, it'll be really tough to be a heavyweight. So I'm really committed. I'm doing these crazy protein shakes they got me on right now, and eating extra meals. And I'm gonna redshirt, obviously, to fill out a little bit. But I mean, shoot, I was watching the All-Star Classic. It was a big wrestling thing. It was the number 3 versus the number 8 heavyweight, and they both weighed in at 234. So you kind of see this new heavyweight trend is kind of kids that haven't always been like so big and like tubby their whole life. It's more like athletic kids that are putting on a lot of weight just because they know how to move better and wrestle better and stuff. And so, yeah, I'm really excited to go and get to be the heavyweight, get to be the closer. Like that's going to mean something at those duels, all those tournaments. Like, I got goosebumps thinking about it right now. I'm getting fired up.
Well, that's what this is about. Once again, I appreciate Cade sharing his story. And hopefully if you have a wrestler or just an athlete, it doesn't have to be a wrestler or even a student, because hence he even said, those friends that aren't sports athletes are just as important as the ones that are your friends as sport athletes.
100%.
Check on them. Make sure that everybody's doing good. And remember to like, follow below, because without you following, we can't do what we do. Share these stories of these athletes. We'll catch you next time on Wired Axcess. See ya.
A Hurrdat Sports Network production.